The big problem for all thinkers is the fact that there are two realities, not one, and that these two realities are the home of two peoples, or races, because these two races, realities and cultures cannot be reconciled. Everyone knows the one reality hypothesis will not fit the facts, but few if any, will admit it, even to themselves. But even as writers argue against the claim that there are two or more realities, their language proves they are aware of the truth. But we do not want to know the truth. Our understanding has been corrupted by the father of lies, and our brains have been taught to deny reality from birth. Even as we see the truth, we are naturally driven to lie and deny it. If we did not deny the truth, we could no longer live in the flesh and enjoy the fruits of iniquity. No one can dispute the truth of two realities, without preaching it, if inadvertently. The truth about the two realities is embedded in creation and therefore, in the way we think, and, in the way, reality is constructed. The two-reality hypothesis is embedded in how we talk about reality. The world of lies is an overlay on the two-reality hypothesis, that only persists because it is being constantly reinforced by the flesh. We do not openly admit there is good and evil, or we would condemn ourselves. To understand this paradigm of our lives, think of a creature that can only live in a pink universe. It consumes the radiation given off by things colored pink. This creature will work tirelessly to convince everyone that everything must be pink. The sins of the flesh are pink in the minds of men. We want to believe we need sin, and we do all we can to convince the world that sin is inescapable and even necessary. If we are reared in this environment, we will naturally gravitate to making everything pink, and things of another color will not look right. The life of a saint looks odd to us and unattractive. We are not drawn to it. The devil does not wish us to accept there are two realities, because once we realize this, we will soon see his reality is the false one. We already see it, but only dimly, and we do not wish to admit we see it. Yet, all we have to do is to look at the structure of the proposition that claims there is but one reality. If this proposition was true, or valid, this one reality would encompass all possibilities, but it cannot. We actively reject the two-reality hypothesis, or the idea there is another reality other than the one of sin, because it is the sin reality we seek to legitimize. If there were but one reality, all of the possible variations would be part of one great manifestation that would be reality. This would mean each way of living would be valid in its own right, a condition referred to as cultural relativity. But no one actually believes every way of living is equally valid. We all have our boundaries and limits. No culture permits unlimited cannibalism, if they permit any form of it at all. Your truth is your truth, and my truth is my truth, claim liberals. But what if my truth dogmatically rejects the possibility of your reality? After all, if you are going to permit different truths to exist, none of them can be true in an absolute sense. If I claim my God excludes the possibility of your gods and the gods of everyone else but Christians, how do you engage with me? You may claim cannibalism is an accepted practice, until I want you on my menu. The claim can and has been made that the world is physical and the only truth is empirical, meaning that only phenomenon which has been filtered through the five senses is testable. But this means everything that is true and testable is that which has entered your brain through the filters of your five senses. But did your brain become real by traveling through the synapses and axons and other nerves of your nervous system? How did your brain achieve reality if it did not come to exist through being filtered through its axons, nerves and synapses? What is a reality that exists only as signals sent to your brain through your nervous system? What kind of system is this for guaranteeing what you see is real? The naturalist is faced with the conundrum of rejecting all non-physical experiences while accepting as real only what has been inputted into his or her brain, a brain that has no existence outside of itself and can only self-verify its existence. So then, the empiricist will say it is the mind that holds all this information. The brain is the visible and the mind the actions or activity of the brain. But activity is not visible as a thing in itself. And even if we give the empiricist the argument, how is the mind the active part of the brain, if the brain is what the mind perceives? One cannot make sense of this because matter cannot see, let alone see itself. Matter is not self-aware. This is just one of the many problems realists encounter and in effect, generate because of their way of seeing reality. A philosophical realist, in this context, is someone who asserts that reality exists independently of our perceptions, beliefs, or interpretations. Realists maintain that there is an objective world out there, composed of matter, objects, and facts, that remains constant regardless of how individuals or cultures might conceive of it. They contend that truths about this world can, at least in principle, be discovered and described, even if our access to them is mediated by our senses and cognitive faculties. For the realist, then, reality is not merely a construction of the mind or a consensus among observers, it has a structure and existence of its own, awaiting discovery rather than invention. The realist is somehow separate from a reality that is out there, yet the only reality he or she can know is in there, meaning the mind, which is yet independent of the brain. There is no way to reconcile these images or turn them into a coherent explanation. In the realist reality there is the physical universe, but it is outside of the person, yet the person can perceive it. He or she can receive signals through his or her nervous system into the brain. But the brain is inanimate matter that exists out there to be perceived by the sentient being. Where is this being located? Is the sentient being also out there? In one sense he must be outside of the mind or the mind could not perceive him. We can perceive our physical sense as in some sense, outside of ourselves. We get the impression we are in a body looking out into a world in which the body is an integral part. In other words, at some point metaphysics forces its way into the discussion. Even when we discuss origins, the very idea of origins is metaphysical. But resorting to infinities where everything has always existed, still resorts to metaphysics, because the idea of an infinity is metaphysical. Reality is either physical or not, but if it is it leaves us without anything that is non-physical, and that includes truth and information. We cannot even know reality is physical, if it is physical, because there is no physical way to know anything. There is no way for awareness or sentience to enter reality, were it truly physical. But there is still another problem, because if reality is physical, everything that reality is, must exist at all times. The conservation of energy is the best expression of a realist reality. But if nothing can be created, where did it all come from? The laws of thermodynamics are some of the most fundamental principles in physics, governing energy, heat, and the behavior of matter in the universe. These laws are not just abstract rules, they are observed regularities in nature, reliably confirmed by countless experiments, and they remain unbroken across all known phenomena. Energy cannot be created or destroyed in an isolated system, it can only change forms. In any natural thermodynamic process, the total entropy of a system and its surroundings tends to increase. This law explains why certain processes are irreversible. The law of entropy. As a system approaches absolute zero, the entropy of the system approaches a constant minimum. Interestingly, the concept of entropy has a parallel in information theory, where it measures uncertainty or information content. The two concepts are mathematically related, and some physicists speculate deep connections between information and physical reality. These fundamental laws tell us everything that exists must continue to exist, yet, we know what exists, had to have a beginning, and what exists, in the way it exists, must come to an end. Something is missing. What is missing is metaphysical. What it tells us is that we have no ownership of reality and we cannot fundamentally change reality because we have no ownership of it. Progress exists and it must be metaphysical. If there is progress, and there is, it must be metaphysical. Direction in terms of progress is metaphysical. If we have direction, there must be a destination. This destination is metaphysical. The only possible destination is perfection, that is the only thing we can seek is a perfect conception, and if there is perfection this must be the highest and most perfect of all conceptions, and this perfect conception, by definition, is God. If it is less than God, it is not perfect, and if it is not perfect it is not God. If it is perfect, it of necessity must be God. Reality is such that metaphysics cannot be denied. The very existence of progress, information and sentience tells us metaphysics is inherent to this world. Therefore, there is God. There is no reality, sentience, progress or information without God. God is such, that in his perfection he cannot be created, for the creator of God would be God, because the creator is always greater than the created. Apriorian is the manifestation of a created thing seeking meaning. As a creation of God, our goal is to understand ourselves as a creation of God. We are information because God informed himself of our existence. Information is what God creates, this is why what he creates is good. Good is coherent truth. Good is information that is true. All we can do as created beings in a created universe is prove we are good, that is, that we align with our culture, and our culture is perfect in the sense of having no contradictions or incongruities. Coherence is the measure of truth, because if everything we are adheres, fits together, then it reflects the image of God. By this means we are made the children of God. The culture which forms through adhering to the truth of God is referred to as the Church. The Church is our culture, and it is formed of faith. The faith or trust we have in God translates into us trusting one another. If we have faith in God and through him, the people of God, we do not require law nor government. Our church consists of a market, for the market is us doing good works for one another. The worker is worthy of his wages, and so the market is good works being produced for which the labor is paid. God created the physical world and therefore is the owner. All we can do is modify what exists to make it more useful to our fellow man. This builds the church. The church is granular, not homogeneous. It is structured according to the nature of the good works done to build it. In this sense, our culture emerges from a market. Our culture and our faith is market-centered. That is, our faith manifests in the level of trust we have for each other. This enables us to work together. In this sense we are agorocratic. The market is the structure developed through good works. In an agorocratic system no one has a right to own assets, that is physical things. Physical reality, composed as it is of assets, can be utilized to generate value. Personal property is those goods used as consumables, not as a source of income or as an investment. Agorocratic is market-centered. Buyers/sellers have unlimited freedom to associate as a closed economic unit. There is no externalization of costs permitted. Agorocrats own what we create, which is limited to the value added to assets. We cannot create physical things. We modify what exists, and this either gives value or subtracts value. If value is subtracted, we must be running a scam on society and future generations. No one has a right to have their costs paid by others, no one has a claim on the wealth created by others, this includes the wealth created by God. This is why the market must prevail. We create the church as a civilization through our market activities. This is the fruit of faith. We build the church. An Apriorian believes in God and is guided by God in all things, because it is God that gives us guidance. Without him there is no direction in our life.